sad story of Mr. E.S. Gregory. E.S. Gregory was one of the pioneers here in Fullerton. He was a land developer. He was into real estate. However, the Depression hit, and by 1933 he was penniless. He had a wife and kids, and he was so depressed he couldn't take it anymore. So he lived right along here. So we were one of these houses. So he called one Sunday morning. He called his friend Angus Macaulay Wallace Mortuary down there, and he says, "Hey Mac, why don't you come pick up a body?" And he goes, "What, your wife or kids? What happened?" He goes, "No, me. I've come to the end of the line. I'm going to end it all today. I want you to just get here and pick up my body and get it out of here so my wife and kids don't see it." And he goes, "No." And so he ran. I don't know if he had a car, but he came down the street to the house. But Mr. Gregory went into, took a shotgun, went into the back seat of his car, and blew his head off in the car. And so all Angus could do was drive the car away to wherever he took it. And but that was the first in Fullerton Express Mortuary Services. But that's a real story. Okay, guys, let's go. We gotta go to the top.
Because Bob had the wages of people that went to the chicken place. So I just brought him over here. No wheel brakes.
It was good though. Oh my god, my knee. Ow. Oh, we're going to Seder.
Old restored murals. These are 1925. And you can see some of the old murals that got painted over. They're still there. It's a lot of cool stuff to see. We're only allowed in this portion and the house portion. So go ahead on this. Pardon me?
This is good near the front.
You guys can go first. Okay. Okay.
Make sure no knife is thrown at you.
Oh god.
I'm like the bravest one out of everyone now.
Because you're the only guy at front.
I'm not gonna have to video.
Oh, so you're comfortable enough to...
I got you there.
I guess you were comfortable enough to talk about it. I'm filming.
Which one reminds me of Cal Theater?
Kind of, but more older and more creepier. Oh.
Yeah. These seats are comfortable.
Yeah, they are.
Have you ever been on stage?
No?
It looks small, but if you actually were on stage, it feels so huge.
Good to know.
That's a whole...
I think I would just price for like 1860.
We really need to make room for everybody, so you need to go down. Riley, come back.
Okay, welcome to the Fox Fullerton Theater. Who's never been here before? Hey, all right. This place it was built in 1925 by C. Stanley Chapman, the son of Charles C. Chapman. It was this was when this was first built. It was a vaudeville house, and they had animal acts, and they kept the animals downstairs, and they were able to get them up here some way. But there was a hole cut in the concrete where they sweep the manure into. It's really you never wanted to follow an animal act. It was, and so everybody was anybody. W.C. Fields, Mae West, Andy Bryce, Burns and Allen, they were all here. And the building was designed by Meyer and Haller. And Meyer and Haller are famous architects for theaters. And they have a couple, they also built Grauman's Chinese Theater and the Egyptian Theater in Hollywood. And there's a really great story about Meyer and Haller a little later on. So this was a mess. Back in the day when this was closed down, we had some homeless people seeking shelter in the orchestra pit, which is right here. It's still there, and they wanted to start a little fire and almost burnt the place down. And the Fullerton Fire Department had to come in here, cut holes in the ceiling to vent the smoke, and that accounted for all the destruction that you see here. Although the ceiling has been replaced, it's beautiful. That's all original material up there. And what? A lot of pigeons. And I don't know if you can see it, but the proscenium here is still pretty much intact, because when this became a movie theater, they built a brick wall in front of the proscenium so they could put the widescreen in. And so, it was saved by a sturdy band of volunteers. My wife is one of them, and you may hear from her in just a little bit. But now it's we still hold functions here. There's an autism fundraiser here. It's held here every year, and we're working on it. They're working on getting this put together, and someday this will be the magnificent venue that it once was. And so, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I'm going to show the picture. Oh, yeah. We have a picture, and so when we started, we knew we were going to be doing the haunted tours here. We just asked the Fullerton Historic Foundation if they had a picture that we could use, and they gave us this one. But of all the pictures they could have given us, this one has something a little hinky going on. And so I'm going to give you all a good look. See if you can see and what this used to look like, but there's a little something extra in this. Okay. Did everybody see that?
Can I see?
Huh?
It's a weird thing.
Yeah.
On the corner?
Yeah. There's something right here, and I blew it up here.
Ooh.
And we had photographic experts look at it. No, it's not a double exposure. No, somebody wasn't moving, and we got the blur, and you can't explain what that is. But there are some really great stories that you're gonna hear from Amy.
I'll tell a few stories.
You tell a
and
few
Susan
stories.
can tell her eyewitness.
Yeah.
Eyewitness experience, and then
And then
Knox
these
has
guys.
had some experiences, and then you guys will get a chance to walk around with some of your, super duper paranormal investigation equipment, and we'll do a mini investigation. Okay. My name is Amy, and I've been with the Haunted Fullerton Walking Tour since the very beginning, so I like to share a few of the stories that we found out when we first started researching the tour. The Fox Theater, like many old theaters, has a long history of being haunted. And try as we might, and we tried very hard, we couldn't find any tragic death, no suicide, no mayhem and murder that took place here. But we're told by people who have spent a lot of time in paranormal research that you don't need to have a traumatic event to have a haunting. A lot of times places like this, old buildings that meant a lot to people and lots of the community, will have, what's called like imprints, or a lot of memories from all the dramatic and energy that was in it for so many years. And so a building like this that was functional from 1925 all the way till it closed down in 1987 or 89, 87? Okay. A lot of energy, a lot of drama, a lot of activity in this place. Then when it sat vacant for many years, stuff built up. Dust, pigeon poop, psychic memories built up. And then when people got in here and started working on it and trying to restore it to its former beauty, it's just like the dust gets all worked up, the psychic energies get worked up. So a lot of people started having really unusual goings-on happening here. And a lot of the things happened around two guys, Ken and Dale, who were the volunteer contractors who were working here at the Fox when it first opened up again to the Fullerton Historic Theater Foundation. And they had a number of really creepy occurrences. Up in the balcony, they got a feeling like they were being watched, and Ken felt, it was Dale, who felt a hand come and grab his shoulder and whirl him around, like trying to get a close look at him. And he felt this, which is really weird because he's actually paralyzed on one side of his body. And he felt someone pull him and turn him around, try to look at him. Both of them felt a presence in the lobby, like someone was watching them. And then in this area here, just happens to be right where the where that anomaly was in the picture, they sensed a female presence. Now, a number of paranormal investigations have taken place here, and they have come up with a number of distinct spirits, imprints, and entities, and I'll go ahead and share them with you now. In the balcony, they picked up on the spirit of a woman, a mother whose son went to a show at the Fox and never came home. We don't think anybody actually died here, but who's to say? Maybe on his way to or the way back from, we don't know. But they felt that distinctly in there. In the projection room, there's a creepy kind of presence that makes you not want to go anywhere near him. In the lobby, and this kind of corresponds to the kindly feeling that the guys felt, is believed to be the spirit of an old manager who would watch over the theater and sometimes let the kids in for free if they didn't have the nickel or the 10 cents they really needed for their movie ticket. And then here, the spirit that I think I identify the most with is a movie actress, or rather a young girl from the Midwest who came out here to Hollywood, and she wanted to make her fame and fortune in show business, but she ended up kind of on the B circuit. And here at the Fox, they not only had movie pictures, but they had vaudeville too. And this young woman was kind of trapped forever on the stage in an animal act with trained seals. And she has a great deal of sadness in her heart. And she's looking out on the audience and thinking, I could have been big, but here I am doing an act with seals. I think, and I don't have a whole lot to back this up on, but I think that might be responsible for that anomaly, that smoky anomaly in the picture we just showed you, because it looks like a female form, and she's right about here. And right about here is where sometimes you'll get a scent. Sure, it could be something pressure with the wind coming in here, but I experienced this myself when I was observing a paranormal investigation. I was standing just about here with Victoria, who is a psychic investigator, and immediately we both became aware of a strong floral scent, like an old-time perfume.
Felt things and the full gamut. But this first story is, well, actually, the first story is not the good one. We were here a couple of years ago on a tour such as this. Bob was speaking that night. I was sitting back over here, probably 10 rows behind the group, and I had noticed over in this little alcove some light anomalies. And I'm thinking, oh, it's got to be from the parking lot that's right outside that door. And I kept watching it, and it would move out and then move back in, and then move out and then move back in. I thought, wow, that's really strange. So that's what we call it. That's what we call an orb. Orbs. A real orb you're going to be able to see with your eyes, not just in a picture. Okay. So I thought that was really strange. I told these guys, and they agreed that it was strange. The next night, the group comes in. I'm standing up here this time. Bob was also speaking for that tour. And on that tour, there was a young boy there, 10, 12 years old maybe. And right in the middle of Bob's speech, he raises his hand, and Bob says, "You have a question?" He says, "Yes." "Are we supposed to see things on this tour?" And Bob said, "Well, what did you see?" I said, "Well, I saw lights dancing over in this little alcove over here." So it was neat for us because he confirmed what I saw. That was really neat. Now, once again, I've experienced a lot of things in my paranormal career, but this has probably got to be the most WTF moment of it all, especially for here in Fullerton. On the presentation, you had heard the EVP of a little girl or a little child that says, "Uh-oh." Right? Did you hear that?
Yeah.
So most of you did anyway. We captured an EVP of what sounds like a child saying, "Uh-oh." Now, through our research and evidence, where we catch most of our evidence of children up out of the way. either in rooms where there's no adults or anybody, up in corners of rooms. Well, next door, if you've never been to Angelo and Vinci's, they have a third floor in the restaurant. And that was the footage that you saw. Uh-oh. We're in the third floor of a 3-story building. That's out of the way as you can get. The manager's office is right below that. They often hear children playing up there, chairs being moved, tables being rolled around. They go up there, there's nobody up there. After hours. So our theory is that we go to these places so often that these spirits know that we're trying to communicate on purpose, that they may follow us from spot to spot. Okay? Fox Theater does have a basement. The basement holds all of the old air, all the circulatory equipment that circulated air in the theater. We sometimes will set up what we call static equipment. And Jim had a bright idea that the group came in. Jim wanted to go downstairs and set up a recorder by itself, let it record while there's nobody down there to see if we catch mice or see if we can find explanations of the things that we experience. So while he's down there, the staircase is it's a switchback. There's half and it comes back and it switches back down. And the doorway to get into the basement is really short. You've got to duck down and get in. I explained to some of you about what we call electronic spiderwebs. It's a phenomenon that we experience either right before or during the time that we're collecting evidence. And it's some of you may have felt it over at Reportage. I know that we felt some stuff while we were there, while you were there and before you got there. So Jim is standing a couple steps before he goes down into the basement. He's got the recorder. He steps down into the basement, and the way he explained it was that he walked through a wall of spiderwebs. I mean, to walk through a spiderweb is more, is more reasonable, but to walk through a wall of spiderwebs is strange. So I'm up here with the group. Jim, I see him come through the doorway, walking down the path here, and he looked at me and said, "I set up the recorder downstairs. You get to go get it." And at the time, I really didn't think anything about it. We've been down there a million times. It's been very benign, Things have happened down there, but I didn't think twice about it. So the group, the tour's over, the group leaves. I know we have to go downstairs. Jim and myself make our way over to the staircase, and as I start walking down first, and I get halfway down, and I look back up, I notice he's not coming down, which at first I thought was kind of strange, right? So I say, no problem. I walk down the other half of the stairs, and I peek down into the basement, and I see the recorder sitting on a bucket. No problem. We'll walk down there. And we've always told ourselves that if we get into a situation where we don't feel comfortable, to turn around and walk out, gather yourself, because you can always go back in. It's all about safety, right? So as I step down into the basement and I start walking towards the bucket, I get this overwhelming sense of anxiety. Anybody here claustrophobic? I would imagine that's how it feels. It was a really bad feeling. And I noticed this right off the back because it's never happened before. I'm not afraid of the dark. I'm not claustrophobic, but I had this really weird sensation. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to turn around and get out of here. So as I turn around, now I'm about from here to you from the bottom step, right? As I'm walking back towards the staircase, I feel 5 fingers grab me by the wrist and tug on my arm twice. I said a couple of expletives, and I'm a big guy, right? It took me 1 step to get from here to the bottom of the step. And I'm like, holy shit. It takes me 2 steps to get up about 12 steps. I get up to the halfway point, and I turn around. My back is against the wall, and I'm looking down into the basement, thinking that somebody's going to come up after me, because it was so realistic that I thought there was somebody down there that I did not see. It's like, hey, I'm here. Was it the ghost from next door? We don't know. I don't know. But I know what I felt and what I experienced, and it got me. It was a good one. So, kicker, the whole thing.
I remember that.
So I'm watching it, and I know
I saw looking through it with no eye.
back installed. And then installed the little,
I've seen some really
but then later on it's like a base.
There's times something else is slow.
Take a look as good as you know.
What's say?
They put it on the table out there. Good thing we took a picture of it.
Can we go in there?
You want